What's up, y'all? It's L, and this is the second episode of the Elmatic View. And as you see, I'm rocking my Tupac shirt because it is his 20-year anniversary of his death. Can you believe it's been 20 years since we've lost this iconic, legendary, revolutionary rapper, actor, activist, Tupac Amaru Shakur? Tupac Amaru Shakur was actually born Lasagne Parish Crooks in East Harlem, New York, June 16th, 1971, to two Black Panther parents, which is Afeni Shakur. Her birth name was actually Alice Williams. She renamed Tupac in 1972 when she married Mutulu Shakur, which is his stepfather. He was also a Black Panther, the brother of Assata Shakur. If you guys don't know, Assata Shakur is one of the top ranking Black Panthers. She's up there with the Huey Newtons and the Geronimo Pratts. And actually, Geronimo Pratt is Tupac's godfather. So kind of like he was born into greatness, into activism, into revolution. His mother was actually her own defense attorney. Imagine she has no criminal justice, any type of criminal background in education at all. This is during the time she was pregnant with Tupac. She was affiliated with the Panther 21, which is a group of individuals that were tried against the city of New York and the U.S. government for attack on some buildings or something. She was facing 300 years in prison and she was acquitted. So she must have did a great job representing herself. From that point, they left Harlem and moved to Baltimore. During this time, his mother becomes crack addicted. She's still an activist. She's still very much so into speaking engagements, even still being a crack addict. I read somewhere where Tupac said he felt like his mother was more for the people than she was for him and his sister. She was a great mother when she got clean, from my understanding, but there were always, of course, issues when you're dealing with someone that's on drugs. While they're living in Baltimore, he meets Jada Pinkett, and they enroll into the Baltimore School of Performing Arts, where he is a acting and ballet major. This wasn't his first time acting. He was actually in a role in A Raisin in the Sun at the Apollo Theater when he was 12 years old. He said he knew at that very moment that he wanted to entertain. After he leaves Baltimore in probably his junior year of high school, he and his family moved to Oakland, California, where he meets another acting coach who sees something great in him. She's actually kind of well established. Honestly, I can't remember her name. She shops him around to different labels. From there, he meets Shock G of Digital Underground. He kind of takes Tupac under his wing and he becomes his backup dancer slash backup rapper, I guess you could say. From that point, he wants to shop around for his own deals, so he goes to Interscope. Interscope ends up giving him a deal with a 12% royalty in his contract, which is kind of crazy to me. I mean, I'm not agree with numbers. I know how the record business goes, but I don't understand how he only gets 12% of something that he's writing. But during that album was Tupacalypse Now, and that's when Brenda's Got a Baby comes out, and then he has this huge buzz around him. He has all these great records he's gonna produce with that album. He and a friend of his, Tretch from Naughty by Nature, decide they're gonna go to New Jersey. I think it was New Jersey, to try out for this new movie called Juice, and they both wanted to try out to be Bishop. And Tretch said that once Tupac tried out for it, that he knew at that point it was over for him because he had made that role himself. Tupac said that one thing he did every time he auditioned for movies or he had a new movie to portray, that he would give that person a face. Although it was his face, he would give that person a walk, he would give that person a talk, and he would become that person. I do believe that if he was to still live, that he would be a Oscar winning actor. Because if you think about it, he was only 19 years old and he more than conquered that role. New York Times and raved during that time about his performance in that movie. During that time, he also was always into some trouble. He was always back and forth, fighting, shooting at off-duty officers. He actually got into a big brawl here at Michigan State University where he assaulted the promoter for the concert he was doing here. He ended up serving 10 days in county jail up in Lansing. So that was kind of crazy. But from that point, he ends up getting a case, a rape case, where he serves over 11 months in prison. And during that time, he's getting letters and getting contacted by Tony Danza, Madonna, and heard that he had some type of fling with Madonna too. Jasmine Guy, all these people who are fans of his because he was such an influential artist. The thing about Tupac, he was able to talk about the streets, and he was able to talk about what was real and what was social in the world. He created his own sound. When you create your own sound, you create your own wave. And at that point, excuse me, he was able to, at that point, he's unforgettable. He's going to always remain relevant because he's his own person. He's always been an individual, an originator. Needless to say, he kind of formulated his own genre of hip hop. Right now, you have people like J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar who followed in his footsteps. So he's kind of done that whole reality rap thing during that time. Him and like Public Enemy, people like that. As I digress, my apologies. So while he's in prison during that time, those 11 months, Suge Knight comes to him. And at that point, Suge Knight was a drug dealer. Previous to that, he was a brief NFL player, and he was a bodyguard for like Bobby Brown and other people like that. He comes to him and says, "Hey, I know you need $1.5 million to get out of jail. I have $1.5 million. This is my attorney. I'll be your manager. You have to sign this 3-album contract that I'm going to hand write here at the prison. And with every album, I'll give you a $5 million advance. You'll get 18% of your royalties." All these sounded good because the only thing that Tupac probably really heard was, "I'm getting out of jail." So he signs his bogus contract. During this time, people said they saw a different person in him. Although he was kind of like, not really confrontational, but it seemed like confrontation followed him. He turned to this whole thug thing. And although he always preached about thug life to him was not shoot 'em up, bang, bang. Thug life, he said, meant the hate you give little infants, fuck everybody. And I think that means, from what I take from that, is young children born in the ghetto are born into poverty. They're born into stereotypes. And he wanted to be the voice of the streets. He wanted to be the voice of little black poor girls and little black poor boys and the mothers that are having children at 13, 14 years old because this is all they know. And we want to get out of that, and we want to not be looked at as a stereotype, that we're more than that. So that's what I think that's what that thug life meant. Like, they're thugging through stereotypes, they're thugging through being poor, they're thugging through crack addiction, they're thugging through it all to become better people. And he wanted to be that living proof that you could be that, and you're going through different types of testimonies and different types of tragedies, and there is triumph because you can become a Tupac Shakur. I'm sorry, as I digressed. From that point, he also ends up getting shot, and he gets shot in New York at a studio. Ironically enough, Biggie's at the studio. And what's crazy about that is that him and Biggie were always good friends. There's plenty of footage of them taking pictures together. They're hugging at concerts. They're chatting. There really wasn't in my opinion, I can't see Biggie being jealous of Tupac, that he would want to shoot him, because, as I said, Tupac had his own genre of hip-hop, and so did Biggie. Biggie came out and had a whole different suave, sweet way he did things, and the way he, his wordplay was just much different than Tupac's, and still iconic, and it's just as influential as he was as well. They were in their own lane, so it wasn't like Tupac was taking people away from him, because they rapped about two totally different things. It would kind of be like no point. But come to find out, Suge Knight had his own personal vendetta against Puffy, because apparently there was a fight that happened at an Atlanta club, and Puffy was there. It was his party. Suge Knight's nephew gets shot. He feels Puffy should have done XYZ out of respect, and Puffy's a person where he doesn't get into that type of thing. I mean, even at the Source Awards, when Suge Knight made the comment he made, Puffy came back and said, "I wish Tupac all the best," because he's a positive person. If you think about it, look at where Suge Knight is today and look at where Puffy is today. Because life and death is in the power of the tongue. But after that point, I can see Suge Knight coming to Tupac saying, they did it. And Tupac would take it and run with it because Suge Knight is his friend. But what we have to understand is that although Tupac is a smart person, although he's street educated, but he was far from a dummy. that he was still very impressionable, and he's impressionable to a man that he thinks is a little bit more mature than him, that he thinks is well established, that he think wouldn't cause him any harm because he doesn't necessarily have to. He knows, Suge Knight knows that Tupac admires him because of this persona that he has created about himself. I mean, he's handsome, he's a street guy, he's a muscle, he's feared. He know Tupac looked at that and said, "Wow, he's got this aura about himself that he liked." I think that he was able to manipulate Tupac, although he was a smart person. And it's that when you believe in people and that you love people, that you don't understand that sometimes a person that what it seems to be to the eye, that there still could be a very insecure or a very troubled person. Something deep down could be going on, and they can be jealous of you. I mean, although Suge Knight is a physically dangerous person, Tupac is a mentally dangerous person. And one thing about it you can't take away from him is his mind. The mind is a dangerous thing. And he knew that Tupac didn't need him. So moving past that point, and I'll go back to that as well, because I want to talk about influence, but I want to also get into his murder. Tupac started to realize that he wasn't getting the money that he deserved. He has, at some point, was selling $70 million in records in 1 year. Not to mention he had Gridlock, and he had Gang Related and Poetic Justice. He got all these movies, and he's doing all these album sales, and he's not bringing in any money. He was like $5 million in debt. It was like something crazy. He knew that something wasn't right, but the thing about it was that he had no one on his side because his attorney was also Suge Knight's attorney. And when Suge Knight saw that he was kind of questioning some things, that caused a stink for Suge Knight. So at that point, when someone's questioning him, he's coming with all these lies about you have all these lawyer fees and all these costs. And at that point, a lot of those things were like over. Like, what am I still paying for these years later? But he didn't really want to question him because he was kind of like his manager out of fear. And when I saw that somewhere into a documentary I watched called Tupac and Biggie, I saw it on Reels a couple weeks ago, and that made sense. It's forceful, and I'm young, and I have no one behind me, and I'm a smart guy, and I'm talented, but you're a blood. And I'm just little old Tupac, And I think that he's, like I said, I think he still looked up to Suge Knight, and he loved Suge Knight, and he couldn't really understand why he would cause him any harm. But he did, and he wasn't necessarily a good person for him. I mean, at the time of Tupac's death, he only had $105,000 in his account. He had a BMW, a Hummer, a gold Rolex, a presidential Rolex, a couple gold rings, and a $30,000 medallion. That's all he had to his name. And he sold $70 million in records. Kind of find out he was paying his money that he should have been receiving. He never even received his $5 million in advances either. But the other money that he should have been receiving was paying for people's child support. It was paying for people's homes and cars and all kinds of foolishness. And even still, after he found that out, he went to the Tyson fight with him. And that is what doesn't make any sense to me. Because if you knew this person was causing you harm, and you knew he was stealing money from you, why are you still entertaining his friendship, his presence at this point? A bodyguard that was for Tupac at the time was a former LAPD officer. A lot of LAPD and LADEA was on Suge Knight's payroll. Suge Knight was taking the money that he was getting from Tupac, investing into drugs, and was washing the money within the label. And these LAPD officers knew that. Of course, they were bad officers. His security guard, Frankie, said that he was instructed to tell Tupac that a guy that supposedly taken his chain the night before he was murdered, the night before he was shot rather, Orlando Anderson was a person that snatched his chain at the craps table at the MGM casino in Las Vegas. Come to find out that was a lie, but Frankie was told to say that per Suge Knight, which from there sounds like a setup. Orlando Anderson was a well-known Crip in the Los Angeles area. And of course, Suge Knight was a blood. They knew that once they told Tupac that he would retaliate. And that's what he did. After they beat up Orlando Anderson, they get in the car, and this is when the car gets shot up. Ironically enough, Tupac is the only one that gets shot up. Suge Knight, of course, made up this elaborate story about how he had a bullet still stuck in his head that the doctor said would cause more damage than good if they took it out. Kind of found out there was never a bullet in his head. He was only grazed in the back of the neck. It seems very strategic. A lot of different documentaries that I've watched and things that I've read, that a lot of the officers who, of course, went to prison before being associated, knowing about the drugs and things like that, they said that they know for sure that Suge Knight did in fact get Tupac killed, and he did in fact get Notorious B.I.G. killed as well. One officer said that he met up with Suge Knight and the hitman at a strip club, I want to say in Las Vegas, to discuss payments for killing Notorious B.I.G., and that he had met him and gave him on 3 different times, giving him money. I want to say it was 3 times, 3 increments of $30,000, but I don't want to quote you on that price. He said that he feared for his life because he knew Suge Knight was a very dangerous person. When they asked him why did he decide to tell the story now, he said because he felt guilty, because he was a part of killing an innocent man. Really, Biggie's death was just a cover-up at that point for him murdering Tupac. It's kind of, this thing kind of bothers me a little bit, and it bothers me because through my own life experiences, I've seen people that were close to me or close to people that I know that were ill-intended. And that makes me want to say, you have to be careful who you have in your circle. You have to be careful of the motives that you see. A negative person that's constantly negative, or every time they're around you is something negative or something bad they're saying, or trouble is following you because it's following them, you have to get them out your circle. Think about negativity is that it's a pro and a con. And I know that's an oxymoron, but 2 negatives does equal a positive. So sometimes out of negative circumstances, because a greater blessing, something more positive. But it's also a person that's always speaking negative, always telling you to do the wrong thing. You have to question them. Why do you want this for me? And sometimes it's the people that appears to be all well put together. And I'm only able to say that because I've seen that with my own eyes. I've experienced that myself. Women who were just as pretty as I am, who had nice shapes, who had beautiful skin, had beautiful teeth, and appeared to be, well established themselves, didn't want to see me do well for whatever reason. I've seen this happen to men as well. They are surrounding themselves around guys that they thought were well together, and every time they're around them is something negative, and they're giving them ill advice. And if you care about me, why would you want to give me bad advice? Because it's something about you that intimidates them. It's something about seeing someone else do better than them that they don't like. Because people always want to see you do good, but they never want to see you do better than them. And they can be a quadruple heir. And that's all made up. But you understand where I'm coming from? Because money does not equate happiness. Material things does not equate happiness. Like I said, one thing you can take away from Tupac is your mind. And that there is extremely intimidating to some people, because they may not have that. They may not have people around them that love them. They may not have people around them that, that's passionate about them and that honors them. And that's intimidating for them, although they have everything else that appears to be well put together. So the only message I have from this is be careful, be wise, be mindful of the people that you have around you, because some people are just not for you and they appear to be just for you. But once again, they're not. I definitely want to give feedback. I definitely want to hear what you guys, the comments. I also want to know what topics you guys want to hear from me. Every webisode may not be a message behind it. I may not be Sally Jesse Raphael every time, but I want to be informative. I want you guys to understand I'm human like everybody else. I go through things, and it's just sometimes I look at stuff and I pick things apart, like, why would this person want to see that, or what is this really about? I'm just a very observant person, so sometimes I look really deep into things, and I like to share that with people to see if they see the same things that I'm seeing as well, or if they're experiencing the same things too. The next webisode may not be as deep as the first 2. I may talk about some different things. We're getting into fall fashion and things like that. I want you guys to subscribe, the Elmatic View. I want to hear your comments. I'm doing Facebook Live on the Elmatic View on Facebook. It's super fun. I'm super silly with that. It's totally random. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. I hope the people who told me to go a little bit longer is okay with my 20 minutes. And once again, check me out every 1st and 15th. This was just an exclusive. I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for blessing me with this gift to be able to speak and to write and to Give some people something to look at. Thank my friend Shop Dakota Blue for this shirt, and everybody who's ever believed in me and encouraged me to do well. My friends, my family, even I don't want to say enemies, but those too. Thank you guys so much for always motivating me and encouraging me to do better and to believe in myself. I didn't say that in my first webisode, and that kind of bothered me that I didn't, because this thing happened because so many people pushed me for greatness. Because sometimes you have good people around you, so keep that in mind. Listen to the good folks. All right, guys, I'm rambling at this point. Appreciate it. Love, peace, and hair grease. See you on the 1st.